Hello and welcome to Tag1 TeamTalks, the podcast of Tag1 Consulting. I'm really proud that Tag1 has received its SOC 2 attestation. And in today's episode, we're going to talk through that whole process and the steps that has been behind many of the innovations that have made Drupal the big success that it is today. It's become the number two used CMS on the internet. And it's that expertise that we have in building large-scale systems that power millions of websites that our clients bring us on board to help them with their mission-critical projects and ensure their success. So if you need help with your project, please email us at info@tag1.com. That's TAG, the number 1.com. There's so much to talk about today, so we're just going to jump right in. My guest, Jeff Sheltren, one of the partners at Tag1 and our CIO, who led our SOC 2 efforts. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Hi.
Drew Danner, who's the managing director at BD Emerson. We're going to talk a lot about this, but we knew we need partners to help us quickly and cost effectively get through the SOC 2 process. From our first call, Drew and the BD Emerson team really impressed us. They exceeded our expectations, throughout the entire process. And so we really appreciate your help getting here. And thank you for joining us as well.
Thanks for having me.
Faisal Khan, who's a subject matter expert in security, privacy, governance, risk, and compliance at Vanta, is also here joining us today. Vanta is an amazing software package, and it was really key to how we approached this, our success in getting things done efficiently, and is also a big part of that monitoring to ensure that we stay in compliance at all times. And I can't imagine going through, the SOC 2 process or what it was like to do this before Vanta. So I'm really excited to get into more about what it is and how it works. Faisal, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Happy to be here. Looking forward to chatting.
So before we dive into some of the details about how it works and what we did, Drew, can you just give a high level overview for folks? What is SOC 2, and in particular, like I was shocked that it wasn't a certification, right? I would say, oh, we're getting our SOC 2 certification. Like, what is an attestation, and why is it called that?
So SOC actually stems from some tragedies that happened in the early 2000s with Enron, where we decided that instead of allowing companies to go around and make claims, we were going to require certain elements of certain businesses, like public companies, to undergo controls over their financial reporting, which is where SOC 1 and Sarbanes-Oxley stem. So Sarbanes and Oxley were senators. They passed an act, and the AICPA, the American Institute of Certified Professional Accountants, they went and they developed a framework to audit companies for their controls. That's privacy controls, governance controls, compliance, security. You have it. Stemming from that, there were sectors of business that didn't necessarily need controls tied to financial reporting, and they moved to a IT and security compliance check, which is your SOC 2. The reason SOC 2 isn't a certification is there isn't a standardized set of controls. SOC 2 relies on what's called COSO principles. So auditors actually have this list of principles, and auditors work with their customers to then set what controls the company is going to commit to, and then will be audited against over a period of time. SOC 2 controls typically stem from your regulatory requirements, your contractual requirements, security best practices, and specific items that affect your business.
So it's somewhat like customized and tailored to, like our needs.
Exactly. One of the very interesting things about SOC 2 that people don't realize is that most audit firms, even before these compliance automation tools came about, they had a standardized list of controls that they'd like customers to meet. We call them ITGCs, Information Technology General Controls. These are things that we define as industry best practices, or things that, throughout the course we've seen, this is what a good security or compliance program looks like. Now, you fast forward into, 2017, 2018, and along comes tools like Vanta. I say tools like Vanta, but we've used all the tools in the space, and I think Vanta is on a leg by its own. What Vanta does is Vanta helps customers like yourself by giving you a predefined list of controls that you're looking to commit to. it actually cuts out probably about 40% of the prep and planning that goes into the control defining process that you used to do with your auditor. Right now, you subscribe to tools. And Faisal, I know that Vanta has done a great job with their initial set that they recommend. The goal of the product, though, is always to be really configurable to meet all the customers' needs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we come pre-mapped to the list of controls, whether it's a security criteria or the other for availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, privacy. But of course, like depending on the organization and their scope, what's actually applicable, there's always that degree of customization that's possible.
So why does a company go about doing this? Are they required to? Is it something that they, take on of their own volition for a certain reason?
I'd, I'd say the most common reason is because someone told them to do it, right? That it ends up being a revenue enabler for a lot of organizations. But if I think put my security hat on as a infosec and compliance professional, I think it's a really good framework to establish foundational controls for yourself when it comes down to how do you protect those sensitive data, systems that handle that data, people, the locations, and really establishing that rigor for yourself downstream so that you can further mature your program over time as the complex needs continue to grow.
And I think more and more businesses do it because of the ripple effect. So, right, post 2002, we started requiring these large financial customers to do audits over their security controls. And as part of that, they all commit to do third-party risk management or vendor risk management. And then you start working for those companies. So now they require you to do it. And then it goes downstream and downstream and downstream. And we're 10 generations removed from the original requirement, but you're doing it that way we can sign a contract with a customer. And like Faisal said, you're looking to enable revenue, but you're looking to mitigate risk, right? And in business, even in our business of compliance, the goal isn't to do an infinite amount of security, right? So my background, I was Army for 10 years, and then I worked in the intelligence communities in the US, and I lived in a box. I worked in what was called a SCIF. It's a secret compartmentalized information facility. Everything we did stayed in a room. Computers were built in a room. That's supposed to be, right? That's the top of what we think security to be. Security is all about what's necessary, what's there to enable your business. Too much security hurts your business. Not enough security opens you up for risk. So one of the things that we believe that the COSO framework from SOC does is it establishes the right amount of controls to mitigate the 80-20 rule. 80% of your risks are going to stem from the controls that you're implementing. So let's get that out of the way. Let's enable business and let's protect your business.
I mean, what you describe, applies directly to us. I mean, Jeff, you can get shed a little light on this, but like we were basically, it was like if we wanted to capitalize on a business opportunity, we needed to become, SOC 2 compliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny that being around for 17-ish years that none of our clients have ever required us to be SOC 2 compliant. I had actually walked through a couple clients of ours, helping them get their SOC 2 attestations, but it's been a decade plus, like pre-Vanta and all these automated tools. And I gotta say, this experience was so much better. Like, just having the automations, having the almost like cookie cutter, like here's what you need, you can kind of customize it for your business, and save so much hours of work, has been pretty impressive. But yeah, we finally were required to do this as part of becoming a D7 Drupal 7 extended support provider for the Drupal Association. And we dragged our feet about it a little bit, having gone through it so many years ago, and it was painful. Didn't see a ton of the value, saw some value, but definitely have come around. And it's we put a lot of work into it, but I think like as a growing company like Tag1, going from a small number of employees to like 100 people or whatever we are now, it's been great to solidify some of these processes and policies that were kind of like, oh, we have that on a wiki somewhere. Let me find you the bookmark. And now it's like, oh, we have a full set of published policies that actually anyone can go view online if you go to our trust center, because Vanta automates all that for us and collects that information.
And
I think
it was the ripple effect that you mentioned, Drew. Like the new CEO of the Drupal Association came on board. His background is in, the Beltway, Washington, and he came from a world where, everybody did that. And he was shocked. He's like, "What do you mean you're not SOC 2 compliant?" Like, you're like, everybody's SOC 2 compliant, and so, we wanted to pursue this opportunity. But yeah, we realized that there's no way we could do this on our own, certainly not in an efficient and cost-effective manner. This can be a very time-consuming and costly endeavor, depending upon how you approach it. And so we went through our network and we asked everybody, other agencies, like, have you done this? Like, who did you work with? And, most people hadn't done it. And the few folks that had, weren't able to refer us to anybody, so we went on Google and we we called you up, and it was a great conversation. And we decided to work together. Can you give folks just what does BD Emerson do? Like, why do you need a partner to go through this process?
That's a great question. So the short of it, so BD Emerson is we're a consulting firm, a law firm, and a CPA audit firm, right? So we actually have a kind of an umbrella of businesses. Tag1 worked primarily with the consulting firm to implement the controls. And then when it comes time for any additional work, right, we have these other capabilities that we offer. One of the things that we find ourselves most frequently doing, not just in this space, but it's really helping people understand what's next, right? Typically, where we have clients come is like yourself, right? Someone's going to give you a requirement, but the requirement's bland. It's go get SOC 2. And as we've talked about, SOC 2 doesn't really have a list of required controls that's for you to develop. So one of the things we do is we help customers understand what are the requirements. So from the legal aspect, we take a look at your contracts. We go through and we see what commitments you have made that we should add to your control list. You leverage a tool like Vanta or not, we want to make sure that the things that you're committing to your customers, you're also going to commit to being checked by an auditor. We find that, that's the core part of this. One of the things that you found us to help you do is not just hold your hand, but help you build these processes and help you implement these controls and help you, we work from the paper to the end of the stack. So we have team members that are going to analyze your requirements, build processes and document. We have engineers that are going to fix, code in your product if we were asked to. In this case, your stack was pretty clean. I don't know if you tell people that, but I'll say it on the call. It was a very low risk environment. You do a great job of managing risks and vulnerabilities. But typically, BD Emerson does everything from the left end to the right end. We advise on security requirements and we make sure they get built in your process and product.
Well, hey, now you can definitely tell people that your stack is clean because you got a trust center that says it. All right.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole idea of trust centers with Vanta, is just being able to surface that information and make that available for those that need to see it.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest part of, I love people in the space that say compliance isn't security, and they're right. So right, compliance isn't security. Good compliance makes you more secure, and good security makes you better. When you do the little things right, you mitigate, again, the 80-20 rule, a lot of the risks. You're a services company. You also have a product. Where's the bulk of your risk today? You said you have 100 endpoints, right? Well, we focus on security and hardening hardware and software. It's always the meatware, right? It's the people. It's what's between our ears that's always falling to scams, to easy things that we can prevent, easy things that understanding what our process is, what our policies are, being trained on what to do and what not, acceptable use. Those are the elements of any good security program that there are security professionals that say, well, that's not security. And you're coming from the government, that's 90% of our security is process. It's these are the phases, these are the steps, this is how we do it. And that's typically the longest part, and that was a part that you guys executed very well.
I feel like Jeff is looking at me right now that I'm the bulk of the risk.
It's typically the C-suite. It's typically finance CEOs that are not technical. That there's a lot of what do they call it now? There's a spear phishing, right? Isn't that the name we call it now? It's phishing, but at the top levels of an organization. You're prone to move quickly. You have a lot on your plate. You're a lot, executives are mobile more frequently than other people. So you click on a link, it's a Mamba 2FA attack. It looks just like a regular sign in, and you give them your credentials. Now they have access to everything. They dump everything. Security is not a if, it's a when. And when you build compliance like a SOC 2, you've already built in a couple of those layers for if something happens, how do you react? When this happens, what's our backup strategy? What's our disaster recovery plan? What's our incident response plan? Those are elements that you went through with Vanta's guidance, with BD Emerson's guidance, and now you have if stuff happens, this is how we move forward.
Yeah. Coupled with things like training and education, and we have systems that send us those messages to see whether or not we're dumb enough to click on them, and call us out on it. And, so you said it's comprehensive.
Yeah, and it's also a really good segue to continuous monitoring, right? Now that you've done it once, you're implementing those tests, those docs areas, the things that you need to be doing. Having that real-time monitoring to your tech stack and being able to just know when things are out and be notified of those things is really crucial, because now you have process and a broader program, as Drew was emphasizing earlier.
And that's one of the best things that came out of this for us, I think, in talking with you, Jeff, and like the trust center on our website, but like, that the process, the automation, having constant insight into this is one of the biggest benefits, right?
Yeah, it's been amazing. I can't explain how happy I am with it. I'll give an example. Like, should we spin up a new service on AWS? We have Vanta integrated there, and it's going through all the controls that we defined and doing all these tests to match the controls. If for example, someone goes in and sets up a new database and they forget to tick the box to like encrypt data at rest, in the past that would have gone unseen for a while until someone went in and reviewed it. And now Vanta's like sending me an email and a Slack notification like, hey, you have a failing test. What's going on? Same for like when we onboard new employees or offboard employees. It's like, oh, did you go through your onboarding checklist? Or the offboarding checklist? Did you remove their access to this and this? It'll even be like, oh, you remove their Google account, but they still have a Slack account. What's up with that? And that's been just amazing and eye-opening. Very helpful.
I mean, I called BS. We looked at Vanta and I'm like, there's no way this can do like what it's claiming. Or like, I'm like,
how it is, Michael. I see how it is.
No, I mean, I still don't understand how it could possibly do it, and it works, and it plugs into all these things, and it's we build software. I know a lot about software, and Vanta blows my mind as to like how it integrates and ties into all those different things and give us that insight. I didn't think it would be possible to deliver on that, and it does.
I think one of the other things that people overlook that, Jeff and my team have spent a great deal of time on, and Jeff's probably annoyed, is right, how do we document our risks? There are tools on the market that can go monitor a control, right? We can get a hook into an API and do a read and see if a control that we've documented, is not yes, right? If something is marked no, we get a 0 back and we flag it. We say, hey, we need to go fix this. But what about the process? You build software. All software has vulnerabilities. All software, right? We leverage third-party packages to complete tasks, right? This isn't the 80s. We don't build everything by ourselves anymore. We use what's on the market. So when we do that, we open up ourselves to all of this third-party risk. So how do you identify those risks and how do you mitigate those risks? And one of the things that you're leveraging is the integration with Vanta and the Dependabot and GitHub, right? So you're getting all those third-party packages, their dependencies, any patching, any outdated software that you're using as part of your stack. You're learning about it. That way we can build those mitigation plans. Where in the past, even if you were doing pen testing or scanning, once a year, what are you going to do with that? You just generated a backlog for next year. I guess we'll get to it, right? But now in real time, every time you push a build, right, you're learning what we've introduced into the product. You're doing static code analysis. You're doing static testing. You're learning. We've just introduced a new critical vulnerability. It makes smart people come to the table. It makes Jeff go talk to engineers and say, is it critical? What are the dependencies tied? How do we decouple? Is there a patch available? Is there an update? That's going to keep your customers safe in your app. That's going to keep your business safe from, would-be attackers. And that's because of, like you said, right, there's some magic to it. They thought of, let's build this integration. Let's make this partnership with this company that people regularly use so we can pull in this telemetry and we can service the customer.
Yeah, it's implicit continual improvement almost, right? If we think about just vulnerabilities continuing to be assessed, maybe it's resources not being encrypted constantly. You kind of have to take a step back and go, well, why? Like, why does this keep happening? And give yourselves that opportunity to go back in, update process, whether it's a configuration standard that you need to go update. Maybe it's a YAML file for the pipeline that's deploying the code. Set those things up, make sure it doesn't happen again. And it really encourages that forward thinking and a bit more proactive approach to security world.
Yeah, it's amazing how it integrates into so many aspects of our business, from the process to the software that we're building. Now, I know that there's SOC 2 Type 1, SOC 2 Type 2. Just at a high level, could you give us a sense of the process here? We talked about defining, the aspects that, we think apply to us. Where do you go from there? And
so it's a great question. So SOC 2, SOC in general, audits in general. So a Type 1 audit is an audit of the design of your controls. What the auditor is looking to do is make sure that you have a control that is related to the COSO principle that is important to your business, right? So maybe we sell software, right? Then we almost have to meet all the criteria, from management to personnel to systems to hardware. Now, how do we tie that control in? And is the control effective? Not the test of the control, in theory. So think of the blueprint of a house. We built a square box. We didn't put any doors in it. Okay, so let's put a door in it. Does the door have a lock? We're going to plan for a lock. Does it have some windows? Do they open and close? The design of your system, right? So in an ISO world, we call it your ISMS, your Information Security Management System. In your management system for your SOC, did we design processes correctly? Did we design the controls in a way that's suitable? The auditor is going to check a point in time to make sure that occurred. And once it did, auditors issue a SOC 2 Type 1, which you've achieved. A Type 2 is the test of control effectiveness. You made this commitment to encrypt your devices, right? Their hard disks are encrypted. Now, to your point, you opted to give your employees some privacy. You have European employees. You didn't want to go through the process of fully automating this, which is not uncommon, but you understood the goal of the commitment. So what we did was you worked and you built a manual process, and you leveraged technology to read and make sure individual users are enforcing the controls on their own machines. And you use smart people to do this instead of technology. That's the test now that the auditor during the Type 2 is going to go test. They're going to say, over this monitoring window, which your monitoring window to start is 90 days, very common for most companies to start with a 90-day monitoring window. Over those 90 days, did all of those devices keep their hard disk encrypted? Did all of those devices have antivirus on them? Did your cloud infrastructure always require MFA for console access? Did we rotate our keys? Those controls that you committed to, the auditor is now going to test those. So they're going to do some population requests. They're going to gather evidence that is going to come from Vanta. If you have systems and processes that aren't integrated, they're going to come from outside of Vanta. and then you're going to substantiate. You're going to show them this is what happened during the window, and they're going to test. I think one of the struggles for auditors, customers typically feel like, insulted when there's findings. And that's not what this is for, right? The auditor's job is to be tough. If the auditor isn't tough, then you didn't gain anything. It's a pencil box, you wasted your time, you wasted your money. Tough audits that look to find things, that's going to make your business better. To what Faisal said, it's all about continuous maturity. Say we had a process where we onboarded someone on a Friday, we didn't integrate their systems and set up their controls until the following Wednesday, but we had an SLA documented that we're going to commit to this service level agreement SLA. We're going to make sure that all of our devices meet all of the requirements within 24 hours, what have you. There are these exceptions. So the auditor documents the exception. And then the goal is, right, we have a management response. We tell them, listen, we understand this is what happened. This is how we're going to get better next time. And then they're going to double down in your next audit. They're going to make sure that you did what you said you did. And that's the goal of audit, right? That's the goal of the SOC 2 Type 2.
I think one of the things I love the most about the outcome of this is that third-party validation, right? Because, in our world, agencies go around like, oh, we're the number one contributor to Drupal. Everybody says that. Like everybody makes all of these claims. And it's hard to, differentiate. And so, to have something you can point to and say, this has been thoroughly audited. This has, serious controls in place. I think is, a differentiator for us that sets us apart from, almost every other agency, using the technologies we do, because I haven't seen any of them talk about SOC 2. I don't see any of them, have this in place. And so for me, that's a big benefit. Jeff, coming out of this, what is one of the biggest benefits that you see?
I think for me, it's kind of formalizing a lot of our what used to be very informal processes or policies. I kind of mentioned we would write something up on a wiki real quick and just point new hires there and be like, there's your onboarding documentation. And now, we have a full set of of policies that have been reviewed. You can see who wrote the policy, who approved the policy, when it happened. We track that new employees have accepted the policies. It's not just kind of a wink and a nod sort of deal. That's been huge. And definitely back to the Vanta integrations, being able to just get a ping in Slack from Vanta when it's like, oh, there's a new dependabot alert, or oh, there's a new server came online and it has this port open. What's up with that? So it's almost like giving this extra set of eyes that we never had previously. That's been great.
Yeah, and Jeff, just to add on, I think that it also adds a bit of implicit accountability to stuff that you've already done as part of your audit for SOC 2, right? These policies, procedures, these processes that you've established, the things that you're doing to keep them secure. Now, it's not just this 3-month observation period. Going forward, for the full year, right? You have to do SOC 2 Type 2 audits at least annually to keep them intact. You're now on the hook to continue to manage that program and continually improve, as we mentioned earlier, your posture over time.
I think it also sets up, right? The world has changed pretty rapidly in the last 5 years. And as more and more US businesses are doing business globally, you see a lot of European companies and countries really care about security because they put privacy first. We look at the GDPR, Articles 1 through 99 are pretty explicit when it comes to privacy controls and what needs to happen from a user data perspective, but not necessarily from security controls, right? They say that you're going to use industry best practices. We'll go back to ITGC's information technology general controls. These are the same controls from a security perspective that you just committed to doing annually. Many European companies and European countries are actually moving. They prefer sometimes a SOC 2 to an ISO because an ISO audit is a point-in-time audit. Now, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I actually prefer ISO for certain elements, especially when it comes to governance and and management oversight and strategy. I think that the controls that you have to put in to achieve a 27001 make the leadership team a little more accountable to the full governance process. Where SOC 2 is, it is very unified and it's standard, but it's can we meet our controls? There are companies that aren't going to make the same control commitments that you did, but your partners, your prospects, your clients, they can see those controls and they can map them and say, do these standards meet our minimum requirement as they do their vendor risk management process? And that's when you point to them and say, not only do we have these things committed to be tested by our auditor, we're also reporting on their status in real time. If you want to go to our trust center and you want to see, how we are encrypting our databases, how we're, tunneling traffic to gain access into a bastion host, or however we're drawing those lines of segmentation between people, process, and technology, you're very transparent. And that's what leads to good security, right? Accountability. You can't have accountability without transparency. Again, full circle, trust center, Vanta.
What are some of the biggest challenges that companies face? I mean, one, we were hesitant to do it. It was costly. It was, time consuming. We couldn't do it on our own. The basic things aside, like once you get into the process, what do you see as the, the big stumbling blocks?
I'll turn that to Faisal first, actually, because I assume that Faisal answers this question at least once a day.
Yep, yeah, 100%. I think one of the core ones is that top level buy-in and engagement.
Mhm.
If we think about just all those reasons that you just mentioned, right? It's costly. It's going to take a lot of time. It might add some maybe slowness to how operations run, where you can't just be running and gunning, and now you have to follow process and do things. And there's a lot of concern around that oftentimes at the top layer and saying, hey, is this going to slow us down? And the reality is it's less about slowing down. It's more about like formalizing that guardrail and that process so that you can go faster over time,
So
right?
this is when I get to be Army, though, right? So slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Sometimes we run everywhere all at once, but we don't get anywhere. When you organize, you go slow, you move steady. Right now, we've traversed the field. And look, when did you start this process? You started this process 6 months ago at most.
Yeah.
Again, there are a lot of companies, and you can go speak to your cohorts, even people that leverage technology like Vanta. I mean, it takes, I think on average, probably 12 to 15 months to ever sit for your first audit. So to me, I agree with Faisal, but I shameless plug, right? Like I was an idiot. I used to tell my soldiers when I was in the Army, education's free, go get it. So I had a soldier one day who was like, you don't have a doctorate. What are you doing? So I went back to school to get a doctorate degree in business. My undergrad and masters are in technology, math and computer science. And I didn't know anything about change management. To me, change management was like how do we deploy our software change management? I never thought about the people side. To me, one of the biggest challenges we always see is making people change. Right? Like how do you drag people along for change? Change is hard. Change is hard. John Cotter wrote a book in the 70s called Leading Change. And today it's still one of the best books of like how do we undergo digital transformation? How do we go change? Some people look at compliance as like you put a tool in, you put in security tooling, you made some changes. You underwent a digital transformation, right? Now you have this centralized spot in your stack to go monitor everything from the people to the processes to the software to your vendors to your third party. Like, who do we do business with? What is our supply chain risk? Oh, we do business with, T-Mobile, and T-Mobile just had their 34th breach this year. So maybe we should consider sorry, T-Mobile. Maybe we should consider moving to Verizon, right? They're items that inform your stack. The more you do them, the better it gets. But when you look at that base set of challenges, there's no value in that to people today. One of the things that I love about Vanta, and shameless plug to Vanta, they invested in a whole team to do analytics. Not analytics on customers, like use case. It's specifically analytics for what's the business case to do compliance? You wanted to win a contract. Is it a one-time contract? Is this going to help you sell up market? Compliance has a cost, and compliance should have a benefit. And one of the things that Vanta does for their customers is make sure that you understand, like, this is what it's costing you. This is what consulting costs, this is what audit costs. But based on what science and logic and reason tell us in the field, these are the benefits. And while you did it for this initial set, you mentioned that you've already seen some other benefits. You've had some customers other than that initial ask for this. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we've had multiple leads come in to our trust center. And since we keep talking about it, I'm just going to say it's like trust.tag1consulting.com.
Shameless
You
plug.
can go there. It's the Vanta Trust Center, and it literally is real time. Here's our controls, and there's going to be a green check mark or presumably a red thing if we weren't meeting those controls.
Nope.
Thankfully, we're meeting them so far.
No,
But yeah,
no.
anyone can go there. You do a little click wrap NDA, and you can see like in-depth details of all our controls and tests. And yeah, we've had multiple potential customers. Like that's kind of one of their first landing spots is like, oh, can I actually trust you guys?
In your space, I mean, our space too. That's how we sell. What differentiates you from your competitor? It's the product's great, sure. Can we trust you to keep our data safe? Can we trust you not to be the reason that we've lost time, energy, money, and customers?
I see this as a lot of maturing our business, right? Like it's so much of what we've talked about resonates so strongly with like how we got here, why we did it. My background is in startups. I want to move fast. I want to make mistakes and just keep going. But we're at a size and point in our life cycle where we need to be more mature. We're onboarding people a lot more frequently. Like we have more people because we're bigger. So it's like having these controls in place. Really, it doesn't slow us down. It just gives us that maturity and level of operation. And our entire business for 17 years has been built exclusively on people coming to us for our reputation and expertise. And we're at the point where we're going out and we're trying to grow our business. And having this in place is like I'm hoping and I think will be a key part of that, right? For the people who don't know us, who aren't seeking us out, this gives us that validation to say we do know what we're talking about. And here, you don't have to, listen to our words. You can see it in real time, and and so I think it's hopefully going to be a big part of our success moving forward. I really appreciate you guys joining us. There's so much more I'd like to cover and get into, but we're at time and need to wrap up. Parting words, Faisal, like having gone through this with many organizations, besides use Vanta, what would be your recommendations for folks there?
Yeah, I'd say when you think about establishing guardrails for yourself or really formalizing process internally, you want to take, as Drew was mentioning, sort of a risk-based approach to things, right? Consider the scope of where your sensitive data and systems live, the risk of people, their operations, and take those into account when making the decisions of what framework and what standard you're trying to adhere to at the end of the day, or even a framework at all, or maybe it's just a attestation to a standard. The CSF is a common example from a self-attestation perspective. But think about what is the risk to you, and from there continue onward. Also, of course, just slowly adding in the Vanta bit. If we think about just the implicit benefits as we've talked through, there's also that implicit benefit of the network that you guys have established now. You have Vanta as the partner. You have BD Emerson's team as the partner. Heck, they're so good at the security and compliance space and operating things. One of our strongest partners. You have this network of professionals that now you've helped establish a program and can continue to scale with you. And that's the beauty of what you've established here today.
I think what I would tell people is actually be more in your shoes, right? Move fast. I'm a huge fan of speed, right? I tell my team, we say SVM, speed, violence, and momentum, right? If you have someone who can funnel that, right? There's a guy on our team that Jeff knows well. His name's Jose, and he's our funneler. Jose keeps everyone organized. And if you have someone internally who's like that, it's not really a project manager. It's more of a, can we wrangle the group and make them make decisions? Decision paralysis is what really slows us down. Again, we talked about your hardest challenges. Your initial challenge was the decision to do it. And once you did it, I think the rest of those decisions were rapid. You asked, to Faisal's point, you took a risk-based approach. Well, what's the risk of us not doing this? Or what's the risk of us adding this? And then, we moved quick. You bounced ideas off of experts and you came to a decision. And then you stood firm and you said, okay, that's our decision. Let's get audited to it. What I would tell anyone who's going to go through this process is move quick, make decisions quickly, be informed. And when you need help, raise your hand. I can tell you 15 other BD Emersons that I trust to do this work. They're all part of Vanta's network. In our space, we don't really have competitors, right? I will refer work to our biggest competitor because I know that they're going to do a phenomenal job. Everyone that Vanta went and handpicked and said, hey, we want you to take part in this. I mean, this whole network is incredible. If you need help, go ask for help. There's different flavors of help. If you're going to do it by yourself, you can. Move quick, make decisions quick, be a group, don't assign a task and let it sit. Group thinking, right? Like everyone come together, make decisions and move. That's what I have.
Jeff, what would you tell our peers, having been through this and led it for our organization, like, run for the hills, what have you taken out of this?
Oh man, I mean, certainly I can see chasing after a SOC 2 accreditation could be super time consuming. In our case, it was not. I put a lot of time in for a handful of months. Like Drew mentioned, like this could take years if you aren't being guided the right way or you're not quite sure what you're doing. So for us, like the having BD Emerson support us and kind of give us that guidance, tell us, when we're kind of going off the rails, or tell us, yeah, that's totally fine. You just have to, change this and that can work for you, was huge because yeah, we're small, we're kind of different. We like to do our own thing. And we like to respect our employees and their privacy, and that like informs some of our decisions. And having someone expert in the field like BD Emerson kind of support us through that and guide us in what we kind of can and can't do. Like, where's the gray lines? Where's the where are the really solid lines? Has just this definitely would have taken us over a year. I'm just pulling that number out of the air, but it would have taken us a very long time to complete this. And I question how our audit would have looked at the end. And now going through this with BD Emerson, like I know we're just finishing up our type 2 audit right now. All our tests are getting 100% on Vanta. So I know we're in great shape. I have no concerns that we're going to have a very nice audit report. And yeah, just leveraging the tools like Vanta to make this kind of automated and ongoing. Like, we know we're going to do this again next year, go through an audit. And now Vanta, we're in the habit of just checking this stuff. Day to day, we're probably going to set like a monthly meeting going forward internally. Like, what do we need to deal with for SOC 2 compliance this month? Is there anything that Vanta's flagging for us? Yes or no? And just keep moving forward. So yeah, I guess the long and short of it is like, hire these guys. It's going to save you so much time and energy, and they've been absolutely great to work with.
Well,
thank you guys.
Reciprocate too. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. I think good consultants are one thing, but you guys are a great company, and not everyone. We can't say that about every engagement. Change is hard for some people. You guys have rapidly matured. You took it serious, and we have a great relationship. So I appreciate both of you.
Yeah, thank you all so much. We couldn't have done it without you, and really appreciate you joining us here today to share this. Hopefully, more agencies will take this on We'll put a bunch of links in the show notes to the various different software, Vanta, and our trust center. If you like this talk, please share it out. People need to know more about SOC 2, the benefits of why you should do it. If you want to see more of our team talks, check out tag1.com/TTT. That's 3 T's for Tag1 Team Talks. And as always, we really appreciate your feedback, suggestions on future shows. You can write to us at ttt@tag1.com. Thanks. See you next time.